Hey everybody, I certainly didn't expect to be outside this late in the year. It's like a month before Christmas and it's almost 60 degrees here in Kansas, so I'm going to take advantage of being outside whenever I can. I'm finishing up today 2 weeks talking about characteristics of God, which in Christianese are called the fruit of the Spirit. There are 9 of those: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and being under control of the Holy Spirit. And I add at least one more, which would be grace. Grace is not technically a fruit of the Spirit, but it's certainly a characteristic of God. I've talked a lot about grace, and most of my life is built around grace now, but I got just a few more things to say about it. You know, many times people, especially Christians with some Bible experience, will just throw around the phrase grow in grace, sort of like saying, have a good day. Well, today I'd like to ask us to maybe consider thinking a little bit more about that phrase, grow in grace. Grace is God's unlimited, constant, lavish, and multifaceted gift to all of us. Grace is God's love in action. Grace is the face that God, who is love, wears when he comes in contact with us, his children. Now, many religious people believe the lie that, well, God's just too holy to come in contact with sin or sinful people. And at the same time, they believe correctly that Jesus is God. Well, I would just ask you to see the obvious. You know, God himself, Jesus, came to be with mankind. He lived with us, ate with us, drank with us, stayed with us, hung out with us. And that was with the worst of the worst of the worst of his day: drunks, prostitutes, thieves, tax collectors, sinners, you know. Just considering that God came and hung out with us sinners should tell us and everyone that God's not too holy to come in contact with sinners. Some people just can't fathom that a, quote, holy God, unquote, could be in the presence of sinners. Well, I believe that's because they don't know and understand God's definition of holy, sinners, and today's topic, grace. Holy, as far as... Well, let's see if we can save this. The wind just completely blew my camera over. Holy, as far as grace as God is concerned, has to do with relationships. Right relationships, being right relationally. And for God to be perfect, right relationships, that means he is unselfish, he's giving, loving, accepting, and forgiving. Sin simply means to miss the mark of God's glory, which is his grace. Grace is God's unconditional love in action. Grace is God loving us without conditions, without limits, without prerequisites, forgiving in advance, lifting up and taking away anything and everyone that someone could possibly owe God because of offending God. God accepting and including you and everyone, making everybody completely right with him. That's what grace is. It's producing an effortless change in people, providing everything in advance and continually for everybody to be all God has made them to be and do all that he has for them to do. God's grace is unlimited and never-ending and all-encompassing and far better than any human mind could ever comprehend. Grace is completely and totally from God. It is like the other fruit of the Spirit. You can't earn grace. You can't merit grace. You can't say or do any magic trick to get God to give you grace. You can't out-sin grace. You can't lose or forfeit grace. You can't produce grace. You can't even comprehend grace. But you can grow in grace, which means you experience more and more grace every day, even every moment. As you do, you find yourself growing in effortless change. You start to comprehend how wonderful and inclusive grace is, and you grow in a knowledge of who God really is, what God's really like, and who he's made you to be. And you start seeing and giving grace to everyone else. God has designed life, both now and for all eternity, to be one gigantic supernatural grace party, which only gets better and better and better every moment as you grow in grace. Growing in grace is not only receiving and experiencing God's grace, it's giving God's grace to other people and letting Christ in you give his grace to others as you. Grace is so amazing, so magnificent, so huge. Nobody can ever comprehend it or describe it, but we sure can experience it. I hope you're growing in grace today and every day. See you next time.